The last man on Earth sits alone in a locked room. The phone rings. That sentence was written in 1938, and nearly a century later it still feels uncomfortably relevant. Humanity has always been haunted by questions that refuse to stay buried, stories that end without conclusions, and mysteries that seem to resist time itself. Tonight we step into that shadowed space where evidence runs cold, logic fractures, and the world quietly admits we still don't know. It begins on a calm morning in December 1872, when a British vessel named the Mary Celeste was spotted, drifting in the Atlantic Ocean. From a distance, nothing seemed wrong. The sails were partially raised. The hull was intact. No signs of battle, no storm damage. But when the boarding crew climbed aboard, they found something that chilled even hardened sailors. The ship was completely abandoned. Not a single soul remained. The captain's personal belongings were still in place. The cargo of alcohol barrels was untouched. Food and water were stocked for months. Even the crew's pipes and boots lay where they had been left. The lifeboat, however, was gone. There was no distress signal, no blood, no struggle, just silence. Total, deliberate silence. Over the years, theories have multiplied like ghosts in the fog. Piracy was suggested, then dismissed. Mutiny made no sense. Poisonous fumes from the cargo were proposed, but no evidence supported a sudden mass panic. Some speculated about seaquakes, others about giant waves that left no trace. And then there were the darker ideas: alien intervention, sea monsters, time slips. What remains undeniable is this: 10 people vanished from a perfectly functional ship, and no explanation has ever fully survived scrutiny. The ocean kept its secret, as it so often does. More than half a century later, another mystery unfolded, not on the sea, but in the sky. In November 1971, a man calling himself D.B. Cooper boarded a commercial flight from Portland to Seattle. He was polite, calm, ordinary. Somewhere over the Pacific Northwest, he handed a note to a flight attendant. Inside were simple words that carried enormous weight: "I have a bomb." Cooper demanded $200,000 in cash and 4 parachutes. The authorities complied. Once the plane took off again, Cooper did something no one had ever done before, or successfully since. Somewhere in the freezing darkness over Washington state, he lowered the rear staircase and jumped into the night, vanishing with the money. No body was ever found, no parachute, no confirmed identity. Decades later, a small portion of the ransom money surfaced buried along a riverbank, but it only deepened the mystery. Cooper became legend, the only unsolved skyjacker in aviation history. Was he a trained paratrooper, a desperate gambler, a man who didn't survive the jump at all? The FBI investigated for 45 years before officially closing the case, quietly admitting defeat. D.B. Cooper stepped out of history mid-air and never came down. But some mysteries don't disappear in dramatic leaps. Some rot slowly, quietly in the public eye. In 1947, a man was found dead on Somerton Beach in Australia, neatly dressed, polished shoes, no signs of violence. He carried no identification. His fingerprints matched no known records. Inside his pocket was a scrap of paper with 2 words printed on it: Tamam Shud, Persian for "it is finished." The phrase came from the final page of a rare book of poetry, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. When police located the book, even stranger clues emerged. A series of cryptic letters were written inside, resembling a code that has never been cracked. A phone number led to a nurse who claimed not to know the man, though witnesses believed otherwise. No cause of death could be definitively determined. Poison was suspected, but never proven. For decades, the Somerton man existed as a riddle wrapped in literature, espionage, and heartbreak. Only recently have DNA advances suggested a possible identity, but even now, the why remains unanswered. Who was he? Why was he there? And what exactly had finished? Sometimes the mystery isn't about one person, but an entire place. In March 1959, 9 experienced hikers set out across the Ural Mountains in the Soviet Union. Weeks later, rescuers found their campsite abandoned under deeply unsettling conditions. The tent had been cut open from the inside. The hikers had fled barefoot into sub-zero temperatures. Some bodies were found frozen, others bore severe internal injuries, crushed ribs, fractured skulls, with no external wounds to explain them. One victim was missing her tongue. Official Soviet reports cited an unknown compelling force. Avalanches were blamed, then questioned. Military testing was suggested, then denied. Infrasound, a phenomenon capable of inducing panic, entered the discussion. Even decades later, no explanation fully accounts for every detail. Why leave the tent that way? Why scatter across the slope? Why injuries so severe, yet so strangely clean? The Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the most chilling unsolved events in modern history, a reminder that nature can terrify us without ever explaining itself. And then there are mysteries that are not just unsolved, but impossible. In the early 20th century, a quiet English village began experiencing something that defied physics. Stones were thrown through windows from impossible angles. Objects moved on their own. Witnesses saw furniture slide across rooms without being touched. Children were blamed, then adults, then no one at all. The disturbances continued for years, documented by police, scientists, and journalists alike. Rational explanations failed. Fraud was investigated and dismissed. The phenomena did not care who was watching. Whether psychological, environmental, or something far stranger, the events forced experts to confront a troubling reality. Not every mystery can be comfortably boxed into logic. Some sit at the edge of understanding, quietly daring us to explain them. What binds these stories together is not fear, but humility. They remind us that history is not a completed puzzle. It has missing pieces, some lost, some hidden, some perhaps never meant to be found. For all our technology, all our archives, all our confidence, the past still looks back at us and says, "You don't know everything." And perhaps that's the most unsettling mystery of all. Because if these questions remain unanswered after decades or centuries, what else is waiting unseen in the quiet corners of our world, patiently refusing to explain itself? For more insightful videos, subscribe to On This Day